close your eyes and picture a boy standing in the shadow of a great palace. His hair is golden, his gaze sharp, and though he is still young, there is already a fire in his spirit that few can match. His name is Alexander, son of Philip of Macedon and Olympias, a name that would one day thunder across continents, whispered with both awe and fear, Alexander the Great. But tonight, as you prepare to drift into sleep, we will walk beside him, not as conquerors or warriors, but as dreamers wandering through the corridors of history. We will trace his steps from childhood to kingship, through battles that reshaped the world, and into the myths that followed his passing. Let the story be your lullaby, and let the world of ancient Macedonia carry you away. The boy who would be king. Alexander was born in the year 356 BCE in the city of Pella, the heart of the Macedonian kingdom. Legend says that on the night of his birth, the temple of Artemis at Ephesus, one of the seven wonders of the world, was set ablaze. To many, this was a sign, a prophecy that a life of immense significance had just begun. His mother, Olympias, believed her son was destined for greatness. She whispered into his ears that he was descended from Achilles, the hero of the Trojan War. His father, King Philip II, a brilliant but ruthless leader, saw in Alexander both promise and danger. From a young age, Alexander was caught between two worlds, his mother's dreams of divine destiny and his father's relentless hunger for political power. As a child, Alexander displayed an unquenchable curiosity. He loved stories of faraway lands, of strange animals, of gods and heroes. He was restless, bold, and unwilling to accept limits. One famous tale describes his first horse, Bucephalus. The horse was wild, feared by all, too unruly to tame. Yet Alexander, only a boy, noticed something others did not. The animal was frightened of its own shadow. Calmly, he turned Bucephalus toward the sun so the shadow fell behind them, and with patience he mounted the beast. The horse accepted him, and from that moment on, boy and steed were inseparable. Philip, watching this act of courage, is said to have declared, "My son, seek a kingdom worthy of your greatness. Macedonia is too small for you." The lessons of Aristotle. As Alexander grew, his father arranged for him a tutor of unparalleled wisdom, the philosopher Aristotle. In shaded groves and quiet chambers, the young prince absorbed lessons that would shape his mind forever. Aristotle taught him logic, science, politics, and above all, the love of knowledge. He spoke of distant lands beyond Greece, of the mysteries of India, of the structure of the heavens, and the ethics of kingship. Alexander listened, questioned, argued, and dreamed. From Aristotle, he learned to see the world not merely as territory to conquer, but as a vast tapestry of cultures, ideas, and philosophies. This seed of thought would one day bloom into something extraordinary, an empire where East and West met, where Greek and Persian, Egyptian and Indian traditions mingled together. The death of a king. But youth was fleeting, and destiny would not wait. When Alexander was still a teenager, tragedy struck. His father Philip was assassinated at a wedding feast, stabbed in the heart by a bodyguard. The court erupted in chaos. Enemies circled like vultures, and the throne trembled on the edge of collapse. In that moment, Alexander did not hesitate. At only 20 years old, he seized the crown of Macedonia. The boy who had tamed Bucephalus, who had studied with Aristotle, who had listened to his mother's whispers of divine destiny, was now king. The world doubted him. Rival states sneered at his youth, conspirators plotted in the shadows, and rebellious cities tested his strength. Yet Alexander acted with swiftness and fire. He marched through Greece, crushing uprisings, forcing loyalty where once there was defiance. At Thebes, when the city revolted, he unleashed a storm. The walls fell, the houses burned, and the survivors were scattered. A grim message was sent. Alexander was not a boy king to be trifled with. The stage was set. Greece had been united under his command. And beyond the Aegean Sea, across the waters, lay the empire of Persia, vast, wealthy, and ancient. The greatest prize of all, a dream of conquest. Close your eyes and imagine the shorelines of 334 BCE. Alexander stands before his army at the Hellespont, the narrow strait separating Europe from Asia. His soldiers, 30,000 strong, await his command. He carries with him not just swords and spears, but ambition burning hotter than the sun. Before stepping onto Persian soil, he pauses to perform a ritual. He takes a spear, hurls it into the earth, and declares Asia his by right of conquest. His men cheer, their voices echoing across the waves. The march into immortality has begun. The battles to come would be fierce, painted with both brilliance and brutality. Granicus, Issus, Gaugamela, names that still ring like thunder through the centuries. In each, Alexander faced overwhelming odds, yet each time he triumphed. His strategies confounded even the mightiest Persian generals. His courage inspired his men to follow him through fire and storm. His charisma bound them to him as tightly as chains. But even as victories piled upon victories, Alexander hungered for more. Each conquest only sharpened his desire. His eyes turned further east, toward lands no Greek had ever seen, toward horizons where the sun itself seemed to rise. And so, dear listener, as the stars above our story flicker softly, you find yourself drifting deeper into Alexander's world. A world of ambition, destiny, and dreams that refuse to die. The fires of conquest have only just been lit, and the greatest journeys still lie ahead. Rest now, but know this: Alexander's path stretches on, through deserts and rivers, through temples and palaces, through triumphs and tragedies alike. His legend is far from finished. The dust of battle still hangs in the air. The Persian banners have fallen, their kings humbled, and yet Alexander's heart does not rest. Victory only deepens his hunger. His army marches further east, across lands both harsh and beautiful, through deserts that scorch and rivers that drown, through kingdoms that tremble at the sound of his name. With each step, the legend grows. Merchants whisper of him in markets. Poets sing of him in city squares. Mothers hush their children at night with tales of the unstoppable Macedonian who carries the fire of gods in his veins. But behind the glitter of conquest lies the heavy weight of empire, the burning of Persepolis. In the heart of Persia lay Persepolis, a city unlike any other, its palaces shimmering with gold, its walls adorned with carvings of kings and gods. To the Persians, it was the jewel of their empire. To Alexander, it was the symbol of all that stood before him. When he entered its gates, the people bowed, and treasures uncounted lay before him. But triumph turned bitter. One night, in a drunken revel, Alexander was persuaded to set the city aflame. Torches were carried into halls where centuries of history had been carved in stone. Flames licked the sky, consuming temples, libraries, and monuments. The city burned until the stars themselves seemed to weep. Some say Alexander regretted it, that he walked among the ashes the next day with sorrow in his heart. Others claim he believed it a message to the world, that no throne, no empire, no dynasty could withstand him. Whichever truth you choose, the fire of Persepolis still smolders in memory, a scar upon the pages of time. Into the east. Yet Alexander did not stop. He crossed into lands that Greeks scarcely knew existed. Mountains rose like giants, rivers twisted like serpents, and strange animals wandered plains that seemed endless. His men followed him faithfully, but their spirits wavered. For every mile traveled, home grew further away. In Bactria, he faced warriors who fought like lions. In Sogdia, he climbed sheer cliffs to surprise his enemies, refusing to accept that any fortress was beyond reach. His brilliance was as much in strategy as in daring. He believed that no wall could stop him, no land could resist him, no challenge was greater than his will. It was in these faraway lands that Alexander met Roxana, a princess of beauty and grace. Their marriage was not only a union of love, but also of empire, a blending of Greek and Eastern worlds. Together they stood as symbols of a dream greater than conquest, the vision of unity. The Hydaspes River, perhaps the most striking of Alexander's battles, was fought not in Persia, but in India on the banks of the Hydaspes River. There he faced King Porus, a ruler as proud as the land he commanded. Porus did not greet him with fear, but with elephants, towering beasts clad in armor, their tusks sharpened for war. The Macedonian soldiers, enused as such creatures, trembled. Yet Alexander's mind was sharp, calculating. Under heavy rain and through rushing waters, he led his men in a daring maneuver, striking Porus from the flank. The clash was fierce, the ground shaking under the weight of men and elephants. When at last Porus was captured, Alexander did not humiliate him. Instead, he asked, "How would you wish to be treated?" Porus replied, "Like a king." Alexander, admiring his courage, honored his words. He restored Porus to power, not as an enemy, but as an ally. Such was Alexander's paradox, ruthless in battle, yet generous in victory. The edge of the world. For years, the Macedonian army pressed forward. But there came a day when the men could go no further. Standing at the edges of India, with rain falling in sheets and their armor rusting from the endless march, they refused to continue. They had crossed deserts, rivers, and mountains, had fought and bled and buried too many of their brothers. Alexander pleaded, cajoled, even raged. He spoke of horizons yet unseen, lands yet unconquered. But the soldiers did not move. For the first time, the unstoppable king was halted, not by an enemy, but by the will of his own men. With a heavy heart, he turned back. His dream of reaching the ocean that circled the world would remain just that, a dream. The long return. The journey home was no less perilous than the battles. Across the Gadrosian desert, his men collapsed under the blazing sun, their lips cracked, their throats dry. Many never rose again, their bones left to the sands. Alexander himself marched beside them, sharing their pain, but the losses were immense. Still, he pressed onward, carving cities as he went, leaving behind Alexandrias, new foundations of culture and trade, each a piece of himself planted in foreign soil. Babylon and the end of a dream. At last, Alexander returned to Babylon, the heart of his empire. There he planned new conquests, grander than ever before. He dreamed of Arabia, of the western seas, of a world united under his rule. Yet fate had other plans. In the year 323 BCE, at the age of just 32, Alexander fell ill. Fever consumed him, his voice faltered, and his body weakened. For days he lay in silence, while his generals and friends stood helpless at his side. When asked to whom he left his empire, he whispered, "To the strongest." With those words, his eyes closed, and the greatest conqueror of antiquity slipped into eternity. His empire, too vast and too sudden, fractured in his absence. Generals carved it into kingdoms, and his vision of unity faded. But his legacy did not die. Cities bore his name. Stories of his courage and brilliance spread across continents. To some, he was a hero. To others, a tyrant. But to all, he was unforgettable, the eternal legend. And now, as you drift in the quiet of night, you hear the echoes of his story. The hoofbeats of Bucephalus, the clash of swords, the roar of elephants, the crackle of burning cities. Alexander's journey is long over, yet the dream he carried, that of reaching beyond the known world, still inspires hearts to this day. Rest, dear listener, and let your thoughts wander as his once did, toward distant horizons, toward lands unseen, toward the endless possibilities of human ambition.